Hello to everyone and welcome to Commander Naval Air Force Pacific's Manager's Internal Control Program Annual Training. My name is Sam Cunningham and I will be presenting this overview of the program, the first in a series of several presentations that I plan on making on each element of the process, designed to give you a basic understanding and appreciation for what the program is all about here at CNAP. I know you take annual training, a couple different annual trainings from the Navy e-learning. This is designed to give you the nuts and bolts of exactly what you need to do to be successful in your program here. So let's get started. We will talk briefly about the law. I'll give you a quick example of a program that had a failure, and talk a little bit about some key definitions, those annual training requirements, and then the process itself before wrapping it up with a preview of the SharePoint portal. For most people, their understanding of what this program is about is that it's a financial program, and maybe that's because one of the key laws and regulations that govern the program is the Federal Financial Management Improvement Act. Well, that act is designed to govern the accounting, internal controls portion of it, the financial portion of it, but the Circular 1B 123 and the second set of instructions deal specifically about the organization's requirement to have policies and procedures in place to prevent fraud, mismanagement, and misuse, and specifically the things you should be doing in your program, such as doing risk assessments, internal control assessments, and having a MIG plan. As far as a real life example of failed controls, one program that we are probably most familiar with is the government travel card, and I've been doing this program for a while, and so the government travel card is one of the things that has at least some marginal risk associated with it. So the person responsible for completing the checklist for the government travel card checked the block that controls were in place, working as intended, and that they attested the controls. However, when I reviewed elements of certain reports, determined that there was at least one employee that was making withdrawals, $600 withdrawals, over a span of maybe 12 of them over a span of 2 months at 6 different casinos in probably a 60 to 100 mile radius. So in this case, the checklist said that everything was in place and working, but there wasn't actually testing to go along with that. So in this example, my point being is that one of my keys in this program this year is to ensure that where the rubber meets the road, where the person is actually doing the checklist, that we're ensuring that we're doing testing, because that's the basis for the statement of assurance, and that's the basis for the certification statement at the end of the year. So it's not just that we check the block and say that everything's in place, is that we actually test what we say is in place. So I won't go over all of these definitions here. I'll leave that to you to read that, but some key elements of this: internal control, where it talks about the policies, procedures, and other mechanisms that minimize the risk of an AU not achieving its goals and objectives. Internal controls simply put, things that should be occurring do occur, and things that should not occur don't. And so that's the key element of internal controls. And the accessible units, those major portions of the organization that have some deliverable, that have some function, those that could damage the unit's ability to do its mission. And then down at the bottom, the statement of assurance and the certification statements, that's the organization statement saying that all the controls are in place. And then that the certification statement is the compilation of all of those. That's what I put together for the Chief of Staff to sign. So Take a look at these over time, but those key elements are the ones that have the asterisks next to them. So as far as annual training, required individual documentation, our admin assistant, Deb Matthews, or myself will be sending out emails or reminders as people get close, especially if they're near delinquency, for their individual training. There's 2 trainings that are required, the MCPT 1-3 or 1-3, which is the program training, and then the MCPTM 1-3 is the manager's training. These 2 trainings, one's required every 3 years, the program training, and the manager's training is required every year. So a note on this, we've been having some issues from time to time and some errors as people try to access the site. So my recommendation on this, if you do get errors, go ahead to our SharePoint site. There is an issues and error help file on there that'll walk you through some things that you can possibly do. There's also a help number on that file. And if you are lucky enough to complete the training, make sure that you print or do a screenshot of your certificate of completion and upload that to our SharePoint site. In addition to that, if you have an update on your appointment letter, make sure that you submit that as well. As far as custom training goes, like this presentation and future presentations, we actually have a YouTube channel, and this YouTube channel is the CNAP MICP training page. The link here, there's one video out there right now, more to come, and it's designed to walk you through each element of the program. So one of the goals of this training and of my future site visits and all that we're doing as far as looking at our internal process is to ensure that you don't do anything that you don't have to do. And so we want to reduce some of the administrative burden on that. And so some of the things we're doing to do that involve us being a little bit more stringent in some areas and reducing in others. So as far as, like for example, quarterly testing, which was previously required, has now just gone down to once per year per sub-AU. And as far as the sub-AUs themselves, which we used to look at all sub-AUs every year, now we're basing that on risk level. If it's high, it's going to be looked at every year. If it's medium, every second year, and if it's low, every third year. From a CNAP level or from your command, we can have mandatory sub-AUs. It's like, you know what, I know it's a low risk, but I still want to look at it. And so it will be part of your plan for that year. And then for the MIC coordinators, you might have several sub-AUs within your organization. And looking at those checklists, some of them might be pretty extensive. Our recommendation is that you have the person that's actually doing the checklist, the SME, subject matter expert for it, to tell you which of those questions is really critical. And then the ones that are critical, those are the ones that they really need to show you proof on, that they've actually tested, so you know that the control is working as intended. As far as internal control and risk assessment for the year, if you are not doing an annual assessment on that sub-AU, no need to do an internal control and risk assessment. And then the final one is quarterly site visits. I'll be taking a look at all of the stateside FAUs and visiting to do some training as well as some reviewing. So those are the tasks that we have in place to reduce your administrative burden, but increase the overall effect of the program. So a quick look at the 7-step sequence of MIC events. For those of you that have never done this program or done it and really haven't had a clear understanding of it, really the goal of the program is to make sure that AUs can achieve their mission, that they're following laws and regulations, that we're not we're doing everything we can to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse, and that people are safe and secure, and assets are safe and secure. So the 7-step sequence of events for this, sometime around the May timeframe, I'll be sending out a 5200 draft 5200, which is a list of what we plan to do for the year, and also a 3-year plan and AU inventory, which has every single sub AU on there. So you'll get that document, take a look at it, see whether or not all the sub AUs in there are correct, whether or not the risk levels are correct, and then you'll discuss that with your command to make sure there's nothing else that needs to be done or added or changed. And once you do that, you will send that back to us along with your 5200 for the year. So that 5200 and 3-year plan will then be compiled in one CNAP, one CNAP 3-year plan, and then from July, the start of the MIC year, till June, the end of it, the subject matter experts will conduct reviews. The MIC coordinators will conduct quarterly spot checks. I will conduct quarterly spot check and reviews of the MIC coordinators, and then at the end of towards the end of the year in January and February is when the internal control and risk assessments will be due. Once all the risk assessments are done, the MIC coordinators will develop statements of assurance and risk and opportunities statements. They'll submit those. I'll compile all those together, and we'll submit or develop and submit the certification statement and our CNAP ROA, and we'll submit that to PacFleet and NavInsGen respectively. So that's the 7-sequence process for the entire year. Might be slightly different a little as far as timing goes next year, but for right now, this is exactly how it goes, these 7 steps.